Okie dokie. Good evening, everybody. Hope the audio is all right. How you doing, Shadrach? Thank you for joining us here. Um, Hopefully not gonna be a too long stream. This is more of a kind of personal based, I guess, and it makes me realize that I'm not sure at what point I kind of deviated from the format I was going towards more, if that makes sense. Like trying to keep it more um I'm not sure if academic is the right word, but more sort of subject informative, educational, rather than like a personal blog. But it's something I have noted that I have been becoming more personalized on my streams, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, there are pros and cons for it, towards it. On the one hand, I think on a communal level, it is welcomed or not too much of an issue. I think people like to sort of get to know people more than in a deeper way, in a more personal way than just their content, as it were. Um, and sometimes I get the sense that e- sometimes content, subject matter doesn't necessarily need to be the important thing. It's just the presence, the company, the companionship. To know that there are other people who are out there having similar thoughts and experiencing similar things, and so there's this sharing. It's like healing together. It's like a recovery group. Everyone's here just to vent. Not necessarily. I'm not saying I'm not projecting or accusing anyone of necessarily doing it, but I mean I'm just explaining the harmony in places like this and similar and the other places we meet each other. Um, so I mean, for me personally, I like to have it like some sort of focal reason, like a premise why we're here. We're going to talk about a particular topic, but in other places, sometimes it's just a hangout. Anything goes. And that doesn't mean one is better than the other. It's just part of socializing and connecting, I guess. And to know that to know that people are still kicking about as well can be quite a relief in of itself. Anyway, I've been I've been doing some self-reflection a little bit recently, and it's made me realize that I I guess I've been allowing my emotions to get ahead of me a bit and pulling me along. And that's not necessarily a good thing. So with this stream and this period of time of self-reflection, I want to sort of try to return to center a little bit, bring it back down. So I was thinking particularly of the last stream and the ones preceding it. I'm not sure how far back, but with the last stream, I was talking about digital parenting, and maybe I was being a bit impulsive, or maybe I was having a little bit of like the red pill rage. Good evening, D man. Good to see you. Thank you. Um, so I just want to tack on a little bit about that. I haven't bothered reading any more of the brochure, but so some points I was kind of missing out on that I should have mentioned at the time was, well, maybe I did sort of like that. I was harping on about how proud they were to be celebrating, and what I think I would have preferred, although I mentioned that this is saddening, this is disheartening, is suggestions of being or offerings in ways in which parents could have confidence in their parental skills. And this is something I felt I was a bit, I don't want to say annoyed, but I was a bit like I dropped the ball because I've been on a confidence, like parental strategy. This should be really this should really be an area where I could have given suggestions or advice as to how to better tool instead of parental controls provided by a computer, but to give the tools of parenthood so that the parent doesn't need to either be reliant on computers to do their parental responsibilities, or to be able to give better reasons to the children why they don't necessarily need this technology, to have to provide them with the confidence and ability to have a better relationship with their children so that they are not lost to technology, so that it doesn't, so that even though there's technology or the digital world is around them, it's not pulling them away, and it's not really a threat. So instead of trying to abolish the computer or to safeguard against the computer, is to instead improve the relationship dynamic between parent and child so that the temptation isn't there. And with that, I suppose if there were to be an exploration, you'd want to look into why is it the children prefer technology over spending time with why would children prefer spending time with their devices over having dinner at the table? What happened to those sort of bonding experiences? And I'm sure there's many examples where kids are now bringing devices to the dinner table if they're lucky to even be sitting at the dinner table now. So how can so instead of putting emphasis on how terrible the interweb is, how social media is destroying the children, never mind that, what's happened to the dinner table? What's happened to families being close and having a trusting and nurturing sort of environment, which leads way to a better, more intimate bond? So those really are the issues, I think, that are being overlooked: the intimacy, the trust, and the enjoyment and things of that nature. Now, in part, that brochure was dealing about the digital the side of things. But it would have been nice if maybe they could have had a little mention. Maybe there is somewhere on one of the other pages. I just didn't bother reading it. But I would like to see. I have to be careful of expectations. But I would like to see the alternatives being put out there to ways in which children can bond better. I mean, like, one example was that Beat the Street campaign to try and suggest that this is a way of getting people off their devices and the kids and adults could be roaming the streets, getting healthy at the same time. But that, from looking at that in more depth, we see that was a lucrative campaign to data harvest, to have children registered and track and monitor their patterns of activities. So there's that side of things to contend with as well. But some honest, what's like benevolent activities that are actually good intended. Some quality time, I guess, is what I'm trying to put forward. So I see the encouragement of the separation as damaging. And obviously, it's not just the digital world that is prone or subjective to this amputation. Children are being swept away in all sorts of manners. The movies they watch, the music they listen to, policies, social justice issues, the toys and games they're playing with, and anywhere and everywhere. Which I think really, it sort of drowns out the idea of this dinner table, but it could also give even more reason why there should be an emphasis on having this time together. I think about taking my kid on a camping trip, and for me, it would be a welcome, sort of like a vacation. People like going on holidays to get away from the hustle and bustle of a city, and they like the peace and tranquility. But I suspect my kid will find it utterly boring, and that's the whole point. It's like being bored is a good thing in a way, because it encourages you to have to be creative, to have to find interest in the little things. So if I were to take her camping, I'm sure initially she'd be like, what's the big deal about all of this? There's nothing that exciting. And it's like, that's the point. There's nothing that exciting. So you have to give it time, and hopefully, like desensitize yourself to the rigors of a busy city. So in that sort of spirit of things are elements of addiction, obsessiveness, adrenaline, hypersensitivity, and those sort of challenges that need to be calmed. Because when we look at a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress, particularly that's going on, from what I gather amongst more adult age people, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that is attributed to this constant stimulation of stressors around them. They're worried about their job, they're worried about their bills, they're worried about what's going to be happening the next day, they're worried about their family, they're worried about their friends. It's just worry, and fear, like fear mongering. So there's not really much calmness going on, and people are stuck. They're being squashed with their emotions. As such, they become more erratic, more neurotic, more hysterical. And I think that is reflected in the idea of the apocalyptic that cometh. There is going to be major meltdowns and tantrums going on as a consequence of this barrage of stressors in its many forms. Crime is going up. There's disease flying around everywhere. There's conspiracies left, right, and center. There's always bad news. People seem to enjoy the bad news and something to complain about. There is a bit of a psychology behind it. Like we have a preference to look for the worst rather than to look for what's good, because we don't know what's good. The only way we can define when things are well is by contrasting it with things that are bad. So we're built in our wiring to look for things that are wrong, which is a shame. And when you're told that no, you've got nothing to worry about, it's unsettling, because that peace and quiet is uncomfortable. You're not used to it. which is another tragic sign that you're more used to the chaos. And when we talk about narcissism, you know, they thrive in chaos. We are at the edge if we're not careful. We are absorbing that chaos within ourselves, unfortunately. So more emphasis on therefore the ability to self-calm and regulate and soothe, and become more stable in our emotions and attitudes, and this will proliferate outwards in our demeanor and so on. But going back to this digital parenting part of the conversation, just for a little bit longer before we move on, I remember the word that they were highlighted about how the children are more independent now with their devices, and how I was triggered or enraged by it, because I was thinking that my idea, well, with the challenges that my child has with the autism, independence to me is for her to be able to cook her own food, or to be able to put her, I mean, even more simple than that, like put your clothes on. Like I still have to help her put her clothes on, to keep track of time, to be able to tidy up her room and not get carried, like to, you know, she'll waste all the soap, she'll use far too much toilet paper, she'll not realize the balancing, you know, she thinks everything is unlimited. It's like you have to steady on now, you know, and to have that self-governance about her, which I don't know if she'll ever fully like achieve because of the autism. Like she'll probably need someone for the rest of her life to keep her on the track, to remind her of like checks and balances. So that to me is independence. When they're talking about independence on the computer in the way that they are, in the way they seemingly are exposed to harmful things, this isn't, and it'd be more of maybe a curiosity exploration, but I don't see how this is helping them become independent. Especially like when you've got things that are pretty much automated. I mean, take online shopping. It's not really that independent to order something online. Just a few clicks of a button and bingo, it's on its way to being delivered. Now, can you answer the door? You know, can you change the batteries in the doorbell? Like, so I think I was getting frustrated with that, and maybe I was projecting it outwards. It was reminding me of the times when I was made to feel as if I was doing wrong, that my idea of parenthood is maybe too strict or stringent, or that fundamentally that I was doing wrong, and I'm the toxic one. And what I need to do is basically behave myself and conform and go with the program. So I didn't really appreciate that, because it makes me have to sort of question myself, which I already do to a large degree anyway, and irritates me in the sense that it's kind of like treating me as if I'm the crazy one for thinking in such a way. And no time was it the greatest for me was when my family was breaking up, and I'm trying to, I'm battling with the ex and the doctors and the school, and you've got the legal side of things, and then the extended family, where ultimately I had to become a one-man show, and have faith and trust in myself that I'm doing what I believe is right, and sort of like F everyone else kind of thing. And fortunately for me and my daughter, sticking to my guns in that sort of way, I believe, and I still do to this day, is the best outcome for her given the circumstances. I try to, I dream, or not dream, but I fantasize about what would have happened if maybe the child went with her instead of me, or what if we were trying, well, we did try to co-parent, but what if that was the arrangement going forward, or like some sort of co-parenting thing? What if this, or what if that? What if there was step siblings in the picture? So I spent the time, not so much now, but I mean during then, like, of the possibilities that could, or the parallel universes that could have unfolded, and with all of that, with each kind of um, uh, thinking it through, I was hitting the same kind of hurdle, which was like, this is all not going to be good. The only way this is going to work in the best interests of my kid is how it is. Basically, the outcome that we have today. It's not the most ideal. She still misses her mother, etc. But like I said, given the circumstances, it's as good as it's going to get, really. And on the whole, we're both, both happy, really. And being a single dad, I can really pay close attention without distractions of a partner who wants to sort of undermine or counter parent with me. I can really dedicate my attention and efforts to have the best structure that I could provide. So when this digital parenting and these policies of the school come around, there's that red pill rage clash going on. It's reminding me that I still need to be on my toes and put in place like maybe protocols, or the say, or the additional insight and education, so that I can better equip my child, so that she can be more discerning as she grows up, and be more questioning, so she's not just basically drinking the Kool-Aid. So JR, good to see you. Good evening. Singletown Bachelor, good evening. Darkblade, good evening. Everyone well? Oh, D-Man has to cook dinner. Be back soon. Or have some yum-yums. Oh, thank you very much for telling, plugging the like button. I feel the same way. Hopefully that's being said in reference to what I'm saying, but yeah, I think, I mean, when you have self-doubt, you wonder, because sometimes, you think like, am I being too hard on my kid? She's hearing things about like the Ukraine, and she's got this fascination with nuclear bombs and things like that. So I was trying to tell her, maybe it's inappropriate as well. Like, I'm going on about, like, honey, times are going to get stressful. prices are going up, so we've got to be careful. I guess I am being a bit irresponsible, and if I'm not careful, making it as if it's her responsibility. So she's picking up on the anxiety, I guess. But I made sure to say to her also, like, I don't want you to worry about this. This is for me to protect you. Like, you'll be okay, honey. You know, you got dad, and I'm going to be watching your back. I'm here to make sure we're all right. We got food, we got water, you know, we got shelter, like we got wheels. We're gonna be a lot better off than other people. I just need you to be aware that there are things in the world that might surprise us or disrupt us, you know. So I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up, because there might be some tough time. Hopefully not, but you never know. And just as much as it might be scary for me to say this to you, like, because she's like, oh my God, it's the apocalypse, or World War III is coming. I'm like, well, maybe not. Let's hope not. But I think it would be for both of our best interests if you had some awareness of it, but I don't want you to worry about it or think it's your problem. You know. And it's also maybe hopefully like explaining to her why it is I'm putting a push or an emphasis on, like, honey, we need to be a bit more careful with how we use our resources, because they might run out and there might be a problem. Like, what if I get ill for a period of time, like, and there's no shopping? So, you know, stop wasting all the food or whatever it is. Stop pouring all the soap down the sink. Like, you got to think of tomorrow a little bit. And I have to, you know, she doesn't really want to hear it, but I don't know. As long as I think there's some awareness, then at least you can do a course correction as of when you need to. And if one isn't too careful with catastrophizing all the time, you know, it puts a hamper on anything enjoyable, because how are you going to enjoy anything if you're always worried that some sort of disaster is around the corner? So it's just something I'm trying to be a bit more aware of. Now, with that part of the conversation here about the digital parenting, it kind of merges into this phone call part of it. Maybe you're wondering, what was this phone call in the title? So, as some of you are aware, I'm a governor at the school, and I spoke up about something I had concerns about. And one of the members wanted to speak to me further about it, and it took a while for us to have to organize our diaries or whatever, so that we can have a time to chat. But that conversation has now taken place, and on the one hand, excuse me, I think I've got the hiccups. On the one hand, I shouldn't really be discussing it because it is a private conversation, but at the same time, I'm not. Hopefully, I'm not divulging too much sensitive information that really would be frowned upon. The intention of why I'm going to be discussing it here now is for everyone's benefit, or for people to be able to take away things that are useful for it. Because you know, like a little spoiler alert, like, I realized again with the reflection that, you know what, I think I did step over the mark here, and I had to be told what it means to be a governor. So in that sense, if any one of you, particularly in the UK, were thinking about becoming a governor, then this part of what I'm about to say will be maybe helpful. Which was, governors aren't there to run the school. That's not their duty, as it were. You're there to be a governor. So where I was flying off the handle, I was stepping over the mark, really. This person I was talking to on the phone noticed that the meeting was getting heated, confrontational. But they really appreciated the question I had put forward. It was just the explanation bit I added on, which was stepping over the mark or stepping over the line. So the question I asked was like, could this mental health campaign that the school wants to tackle, could it backfire? That was a good question to ask. This person was telling me. It's just when I was going into it, I was because we are, as a governor, you're not there to bring information or your opinions as such. You're there to make sure the school is doing their job, which makes it a lot more simplistic in a way. So really, all the extra stuff I was bringing is something maybe I should have done as a concerned parent rather than from the position of a member of the governing board, is what I'm saying. So this person I was on the phone with was asking, like, their position is to make sure that the other governors have a say and feel like they've been acknowledged. So he was like asking me, he was asking me if because I suggested, like, I was jabbering away about, like, look, I noticed the passive aggression. I noticed that they didn't like what I was bringing to the table, and this sort of blindsidedness going on. It's like, yeah, okay, that's neither here nor there, but like, did you feel like you were being how do you feel like you were being treated? And I mentioned, like, this is somewhat would be classed as a little bit like abuse. So it's like, are you saying that the teachers are abusive, or were you abused? Did you feel like you were abused? And it's like, that's a tough one, because in some ways, like, on paper, it would sort of fall in that category. However, because of the psychological understanding, I know it's not anything really personal. It's you need to have that deeper knowledge to understand why when someone is abusive, it doesn't necessarily mean they're an abuser. So you're kind of splitting hairs here, and because I don't take it personally, I understood the reasons why there was passive aggression, for example. It's not because of me personally, it's because of sort of like ego defenses and reassertion of control. It's more of housekeeping, in a sense. So because I don't feel personally slighted, I therefore don't really feel like I was abused. But was it abusive behavior? It could be. You could say so. So someone can be abusive, doesn't necessarily mean they're an abuser unless they were successful in their abuse. A thief isn't really a thief until they've actually stolen something. If they're trying to steal but they're not very successful at it, then I don't know if you can still call them a thief at that point. that maybe they're on their way to becoming one, but they haven't actually committed the act. So had I felt, or had I allowed myself to be abused, or to allow this to damage my self-esteem, then maybe I would say yes, I was abused. So this is a problem in wider society where people are getting offended easily and then accusing another person of being a perpetrator, where it's like, if you were a bit more resilient or had a thicker skin or didn't take it so personally, or take it to heart, maybe you wouldn't be oppressed or offended. And then therefore the person you are accusing hasn't really committed anything. So so we can see how a little definition, I don't know if it's a little, but with clarity of a definition, a lot of problems could be avoided. A lot of hate, like accusations of hate speech, could be avoided. And so confrontation and aggression could be lowered. But unless there's that that effort to really want to understand the meaning of words, then maybe it wouldn't be any surprise that things get blown out of proportion way too much and too easily. So I'm not sure how well that was going to sit with the person I was on the phone with. I was kind of saying, like, look, maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I didn't really feel very respected or treated with dignity, if I could put it that way. If we're supposed to be asking questions, or if we're being invited to ask questions, and when you ask a question and they don't like how it sounds, you are treated in this way, then what's the point of me asking a question? And what kind of example is this showing to children if they were to witness it? So it doesn't really inspire me or fill me with much faith that people might say this is democratic. They might say we're open to question time, but really, if you're not being authentic about it, or if you're not able to handle criticism, then what's the point? So he allowed me the chance to speak more freely, and as you can imagine, people who come from this sort of way of life, we have a tendency to want to over explain, like I already am doing, which unfortunately I don't think allowed him to understand how bias or how disorder is built into the system. So as such, he wasn't able to really understand that for many people, because of this disorientation, it ends up compromising their processing in logic. They don't see this. It's like the problem with what we call here, like the white knight, or the problem with the codependent. You can point things out to them, but if they're part of that system, they're not going to really see it or understand it. Or if they do, there's quickly denial or something like that will come along to prevent proper understanding, proper awareness. So with me being a bit doom and gloom and saying, like, whatever policy, suggestion, direction, with this mindset, with research, it says it's maladaptive. and self-defeating, self-destructive. So looking into a crystal ball, I can only see bad things happening, despite how tantalizing they might sound. And I mentioned the Trojan horse, for instance. It feels good. He wanted to kind of pull me over on that a little bit and be like, how about, like, you're assuming the worst? Like, how about, would you be all right to let things play out a bit before making such assumptions? And I could have easily been a bit of a wisecrack and said, well, you're assuming everything is going to go well. But according to the research, I have reasons for my assumption. It's part of that definition. Like, especially when you delve with narcissism, it's the escape from reality. So how can you escape reality in a positive way? You can't, by definition. You get further away from that which is actually the cure, reality, the truth. So whatever it is you're attempting to do, under whatever banner of virtue, inherently it distances you from actual progress, from positivity. But saying all that, like, hopefully I am, people like us who are making our forecasts, who can see the patterns and everything is following the trajectory, maybe we are wrong and everything will work out well. And these sort of things are going to add to fundamentally what my takeaway at the end. So try and bear some of these sentiments and thoughts in mind as we progress through. But actually, we're pretty much there already, going forward. So we had that conversation, and I asked, like, am I being reprimanded here? Like, is this being recorded? And he's like, no, I'm just checking in to make sure you feel like you've been heard. And is there anything you want help with? Are you okay with the online system, the archive? So I said, okay, I could do with some of that help. There are still acronyms and lingo terminologies that I'm not too familiar with. They're talking about percentages, and I didn't want to sound rude, but it's like some of the stuff that's brought to the meeting is not in my field, not to say expertise, but in my field of interest. So when I see it, I'm a bit like, it's got nothing to do with me. It's irrelevant. Like, they're talking about maybe how the budget is being allocated, and I'm like, well, how you allocate it is how you allocate. Like, it's not. I got no real opinion on it, so it doesn't really hit me with that level of importance. But when you're talking about mental health, then boom, that's why I spoke up, because it's like, right, this is something I feel like I can contribute towards in terms of awareness. So with his reminder, and with some, self-reflection upon it, it made me realize that I need to keep my questioning or my questions more precise and more poignant, which, so you have to kind of like bite your lip a little bit, keep your personal subjectivity out of it. Really, it's not really for discussions, rather the questions are meant to be thought-provoking. So it might seem like you're being silenced, but in a way, you try and look at the positive. In a way, it means you're having to um, have a heavier weighted question, if that makes sense. Like if you're going to ask a question, it better be pretty profound, something for them to really think about. And the thing is, it's for them to think about, not for you as a governor. Um, so elaborating on how things might be harmful or irrelevant, it's not really. It's up to the school to decide. Now that could be frustrating because if I'm saying that they can't see the forest through the trees, then they're not going to have the awareness. Then they're going to still be gung ho about whatever it is. But that becomes their responsibility, really. At that point, they should have done the legwork. Um, so what it makes me refocus, well, what it makes me now want to direct my focus towards, instead of going on the attack and trying to go toe to toe or challenge. Um, and again, like I mentioned before, it's that's stepping out of my bounds. I am reminded, well, what is it I do have control over then? And that is in self protection, defense. Um, I mean, I know it might have been hopeful to think that we we could have, or whatever, could put the brakes on this out of control train. It's about to be a train wreck. And I appreciate people that were in support of what I was ignorantly pursuing. But I think not all is lost. I think if we change the way we look at it, then it doesn't have to be we don't have to chalk it up as a loss in a way. And a reminder that even though I'm saying it as if like it's a fight, as if it's them versus me and it's a competition, we have to be careful having that kind of framework of a mindset. So I am aware that it might sound a little bit hypocritical of me saying it. So like what I wanted, maybe trying to get some sort of social change was asking for too much. And the real prize is taking it more in close proximity is at least because of a sense of obligation to say something that was achieved. That was all that really mattered, was just putting forward that question. That's the end of it. What happens afterwards, neither here nor there. So in that regard, like I don't have to feel the guilt of being silent, of I don't have to feel like I was a coward, that I was complicit in in crowds, like in bystander syndrome. Like blood is not on my hand in that sense. So a cleaner conscience, and maybe that is where if there was to be a victory of sorts, is where the victory is. And unfortunately, that means, as a reminder, is I'm not responsible for other people's children. They're not my kids. And this ties in with that digital parenting. If people want to use digital parenting as their means, who am I to judge them for it? I shouldn't really be offended. It's not for me. That should be as far as it goes. I shouldn't be condemning people, saying that they're lazy parents or they're irresponsible parents because they bent the knee to the digital landscape, digital social media, or whatever it is. Really, I should be keeping that kind of opinionation to myself. So other people's children are not my own. And I might not like what I see, but not to sound too selfish either, but because they're not my responsibility, it means even if their life does spiral out of control, as such, I'm freed up from feeling guilt about it, because maybe this is partly why I was being invested or interested in what happens to other people's children, because I felt a sense of guilt, as if I had a part to play in it. So the only child really that I am responsible for is my own. So with all being said, this allows me some freedom in a way, because instead of being focused on controlling other people or being responsible for what happens for other people, it makes me realize that maybe I've been a bit neglectful with my own, not just my child, but with my own self-being, myself, looking after my self-care. And as a reminder, perhaps that is because of this, an issue of self-esteem, because I'm being reminded or triggered, maybe in a PTSD sort of style, like having flashbacks to times of being questioned as if I'm wrong, as if I'm the bad guy, as if I'm the toxic one, and other people's opinions mattered more than my own. Even though I knew it wasn't true, I still put other people's opinions of me ahead of my own. And it's kind of funny because not so long ago, as I was like rallying support, about to go off into the war zone, one of you guys said to me, "Good luck." And I think both he and I both knew what he meant by that, because it's like, good luck trying to convince them, trying to change their mind. It ain't gonna happen, But he respected me to allow me to make that decision for myself and wish me all the best, wish me good luck. But he was right, like it wasn't gonna happen. You never know. I mean, maybe like someone else might have the courage now to step forward and speak up if something doesn't sit well with them, and maybe they'll take it further. But again, neither here nor there. That's got nothing to do with me anymore. And if it happens, it happens. If not, it doesn't. So we need to also not be so what's the right way of putting it? Outcome dependent. be careful of that, because outcome dependent, you have high expectations. Now, had I not done this exercise of self-reflection and also talking to you all now about it as well, I imagine myself being probably more red pill raged than I was initially because of this because I would have not had the realization to lower this expectation. And it's an expectation that is untitled. Now, I normally tell people, like, keep your expectations low. But I was having expectations that I shouldn't even had in the first place, if that makes sense. Because there were expectations which were out of my boundaries. So that's like a double whammy of disappointment. You're getting upset about something that really you had no right to be upset about in the first place. Oh, what a tangled web we weave, eh? Well, looking into a crystal ball, and again, this is, it's, if you focus on your self-care and, your locus of control is with you and all this sort of stuff, then it doesn't really matter what happens outside. But we like to speculate. It's interesting, I suppose. So looking into a crystal ball, I imagine the rise of the communal narcissist and the influx. It's already there, but even more in the spiritual realm, the spiritual light, the healing and recovery, those kind of sectors of communities, wanting to bring social change and progression or positivity to society, to save the world, to save humanity. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of a confession in there, but yeah. So telling people how to be enlightened. Now, it might bring a bit of awareness, which is kind of like outing them. Is that the right word? You out yourself. You reveal who you are by accident. Because if you're bringing awareness and people are like going, hang on, you mean like you've kind of like spilled the beans. But obviously they're not trying to expose themselves. They're trying to make it. They're trying to make themselves more acceptable, so that it's normalized, and maybe or hopefully these ideas become devalued, because everyone, even now, is a bit sick and tired of hearing gaslighting, hearing narcissists. It's like, oh God, here we go again. So if people are by the bombardment of such things, it dilutes its meaning. And whenever talking about meaning or significance, I'm always thinking about nihilism. And so in this pursuit of love and light, of enlightenment, I think closely followed with that will be the nihilism, and as such, despair and a sense of lost. Just like how when social media was developing and there was these false promises of making people more connected, but it turns out people feel more and more disconnected. A similar sort of vein where the more people try and be love and light, harmony, peace on earth, and enlightenment, and like kumbaya, then the more abysmal they will feel, and the more depressed. Um, so it adds to the whole breakdown of mental fortitude. You know, the hysteria and the neuroticism and things like that. Well, I mean, I guess from a narcissist point of view, they would love that because they like to have people broken and vulnerable. Not sure what kind of quality of fuel they'll expect from it, though. But almost like we need to, or at least maybe it's my own prerogative. Like, stop caring so much. And maybe this is why I'm having such a zen time spending it with the car. You know, it's kind of like, oh yeah, having quiet time is actually making me realize, damn, I've been overly exposed to too much drama lately, and I feel allergic to it. I can't tolerate it in the same way I did before. So maybe I should step back. Maybe I should go no contact. And so that lesson of no contact isn't really just applicable to a particular person. Like it's the philosophy of no contact, where it's like you shall not pass. I value my peace, you know. So the drama, and with the reminder of the sort of, with the lesson of governance, whereas like, you know what, Billy, maybe you do talk too much. Just keep it simple. You undermine your own point by diluting, by over explaining it. Now, let's have a quick look at the chat, because I'm going to shut this down in a moment. I'm going to leave it with something in particular. We get a double shout out. Thanks for the shout out. Boy, you're getting another shout out there, D-Man. Saint D-Man. All right, Billy, do you take that camping trip? Oh, do take that camping trip, sir. You will remember that forever. Yeah. I really want to. The one thing which I should not allow to terrorize me is the idea of like, well, there's going to be tolls to pay on the road. There's going to be nowhere to park. You have to pay for a fire pit. It's going to be a very sterile environment where, you know, when I think camping, I'm thinking pretty much wilderness. Most people do, right? But in the UK, it's kind of like corporation style camping, where everyone's got a square plot of land, I suppose. You're butted up next to another person. There's amenities all over the place. It's too convenient. I mean, they got this. I don't know if you guys have it over where you are. They call it. Oh, is it like glamour, glamping? I think they call it glamour camping. And I'm like, nah, you're killing it. You're killing the spirit of camping. I want raw fire, not a constructed, neatly cut twigs of wood, and you can only burn, like, rules about the burning and things like that. I mean, you know, I have some sensibilities. Like, I don't need someone to tell me like not to put plastic on a fire, you know. But seems like there needs to be rules about it now, or whatever. You know, put your fire out when you're done. It's like, to me, it'd be like, duh, of course, but it looks like people need to be told, and that sort of irritation is what's putting me off wanting to camp. And I know it's pettiness, it's silly. Um, so yeah, and it's not just camping. Oh, I was toying with the idea of like maybe I should just book a hotel just for a couple of nights. You know, a room. There'll be nothing. It'll be very boring, and that's the whole point. Billy, you're evil with your kid. You want to kill her with boredom. It's like no, no, no. I wanted to unplug. um, you know, the simplicity. But yeah, camping would be great. By a bit more at a time, then you stretch the buy over a period. Mhm. Okay. Oh, Iridium's here. Good evening, sir. Oh, something about. Right. So, D-Man says, understandable because it does affect society as a whole, and in ways our own children because they absorb some parts of it. Yeah, and this is maybe it's like a topic for in of itself. You know, this exposure or absorbing an issue, a topic about boundaries I'd fall under, um, and how I suppose, despite us discussing it and we all theoretically understand boundaries, putting it into practice isn't always as easy as it may seem or be. Um, but you know, I think what helps is being able to have these moments of discussion so that we can have like gentle reminders. It's like as much as we all might think we like to know, we have good solid boundaries. Like don't be complacent, don't be neglectful. To check on them and to be aware of how there are like little holes. It's like it's almost like instead of a brick wall, it's almost like a sponge wall. Like or the wall has porous. It's a porous wall. It has little holes in it, and uh, things can seep through the boundaries without us even realizing it if we're not too careful. And I also believe, I mean, there's a little bit of like as I mentioned, you know, don't let MGTOW become your coffin. You know, don't cocoon yourself so that you suffocate with bubble wrap for protection. So as much as we might want boundaries, we do want the ability to have. We want boundaries that we can, uh, in a hopefully in a healthy, nice way. Like you step back. Like when you have a relationship with someone, you have to kind of cross the boundary. Um, by intimacy, for example. So just because there is a wall doesn't mean you need to live behind it forever and always. Sometimes it's this ability. I suppose it means like be responsible about your boundaries. Some things you're gonna want to let in. Some things you're not gonna want to let in. There might be a time and place under certain circumstances when you let particulars in or not. And sometimes you might step over that boundary as well. And you need to be aware of other people's boundaries. So I mean that a whole issue of boundaries on its own is already quite a dynamic um, principle to uh, to navigate with or to deal with. Maybe I'm trying to overcomplicate it. Oh, very different from camping. Yeah, very very different from camping in the mountains. You know, I think the easiest way I could describe it is, from what I gather or imagine now, it's become a very sterilized. Um, it takes the spirit or the fun out of camping. Oh, thank you very much, D-Man. Um, like in the when I was younger, my dad had a caravanette. You know, you could open up the roof, and in the roof were like bunk beds. And I remember like childhood memories, like he'd be trying to chug along like off to Wales or something like that. And this is like a beat up old caravan. It couldn't really make the journey in one go. So we'd have to stop off overnight, and it would be random. He would just pull up on the side of some road or a lay-by or something, and we would be there for the night, like midway kind of thing. If you were to do that now, you would be breaking the law. I'm pretty sure you would be breaking the law. So in the UK, it's kind of an underground hobby. They call it stealth camping, where people will take their SUVs or a van, and they'll put tinted windows or curtains inside. They've got a little stove, and stealthy. They're going to places where they shouldn't really be and camping for the night. You know, so from the outside, no one would even know you were in there. So it's a different form of camping because you can't really be in there making too much noise, and you're having to kind of keep on the down low and hide. But it's a different sort of buzz from doing it. You know, it's like a taboo. It's like, oh, we're being naughty. We're doing something we shouldn't be doing, and we're getting away with it. I mean, all power to them. I think it's great what they're doing. I can't do that with my car. It's not, you know, you can't really. I wouldn't want to really be like, hey kid, we're gonna do some stealth camping tonight. You know. No, I mean, I want tent. I want fire. I want that sort of bushcraftness about it. You know. Waking up in the morning, you're like, I'm baking hot because the tent is like an oven. Russ, good evening. Good to see you here. And Doug is here. Good to see you too, Doug. Hope you're doing well. Oh. It sure feels true, but narcissists don't seem to respect boundaries. Okay, little misconception. People say narcissists don't have or don't like boundaries. It's a one-way street. They do like boundaries, and they do have boundaries. It's their way only, basically. It's like they expect you not to have boundaries so they can abuse you. But if you wanted something from the narcissist and they say no, you ain't gonna get past their no. You know, so they have the ultimate boundary in a way. It's a one-sided boundary. They get to do what they like. They can do as they please. They don't have to bend or negotiate with you if they don't want to. They don't have to. What's the word? Mutual reciprocate. But they expect you to do everything. You know. Oh yeah, there we go. And yeah, so you got over there stealth camping, yeah, and they'll pop to the supermarkets to use the toilet. You know, when I was younger, if you needed to go for a whiz, you would do it on you'd find a tree or something and do a whiz. Over here, you would get, if the police catch you, you would get a penalty or whatever. So you can't even, you're getting taxed for doing that. Yeah, well, the global warming. Okay, so we're going to finish up. Now, what I wanted to finish on is by saying I suppose like the beauty of simplicity in a way, or which is in contrast to this over explanation, these deep dives that we're guilty of doing, because we want a sense of justification. We want to like Ellen Ripley in Aliens holding Burke right to the wall. Burke, we want to annihilate them with our facts and figures and our research and evidence, and sometimes it ends up becoming a waste of energy. It means more to us than it does to them, because we could be blue in the face and they don't really care. They're not going to change. They've got their fingers in their ears and they're not really listening. So we've worked ourselves up fundamentally for nothing. And there's also that you have to be a bit careful, because sometimes with your over explanation, what you're unintentionally doing is you're educating, if it's a narcissist or the other person, of how to fly under the radar better, how to circumvent future threats that you are giving over. Like with you ranting at them, they see this as a threat to their sense of security, so they become more better. They improve their defense system to combat your onslaught of facts and truth. So in which case then we need to allow ourselves to become exhausted with trying to control and convince other people, especially if they're not interested. Like we feel slighted that how is it I'm interested and you're not? Well, that's a question really more for you to answer yourself than for them to answer. If they're not interested, they're not really interested, and you need to be asking why do you care so much that they are interested in things that you care about. You might have good legitimate reasons, but the reasons I say is so that it would make our streams very short because in summary it would be basically say no contact, and that would be good night. Need I say any more? Sometimes an explanation can help, at least for people like ourselves who want the knowledge, who want the information. But to be a bit self-critical, it means therefore like if we want to be moaning about the schools, really it means you could ask a simple question, be like, and so and so what, and what of the schools you're so unhappy with? Like, what are you going to do about it? Never mind getting into the nitty-gritty. Or if people are complaining about women or complaining about men are like this or women are like this, it's like, right, and so, well, what are you going to do? Like, if you don't like them, why are you going on about them? Go no contact. Some people might complain about their channel being censored or their shadow banned, and it's like, well, what would be a question you could ask? Well, a question you could say to someone like that would be like, so do you want to quit? You're being shadow banned, you're being censored. Okay, well, what of it? What do you want? Do you want me to plug your channel for you? What will make you happy? Or is complaining about bringing up the shadow and the censoring, is that making you feel happy? A bit of like vindication or persecution complex. It's like I'm a victim, and because I'm a victim, that gives me a sense of power. Because when we fly off the handle of our over explanation, it highlights our lack of self-control and that we feel we want to be heard. So we want to feel like we exist, you know. We could be seen. Like, I see you, I hear you. I exist. Yes, okay. And all these different areas of venting out, it boils down to a question of sorts being, what do you want others to change so badly? Why is it so important to you? Now I will finish up with this last sort of sentence, and so thank you all for being here. We're about to sign out now, so I'll finish with this, and the question is, regardless of the things we see in the world and the spaces we occupy, where do I, or what am I willing to change?